Bob Costas is getting grief on top of grief on top of grief. How dare he do what Barack Obama and Mitt Romney were afraid to do, which is utter this three-letter word in public, gun, or the four-letter word, guns. What is the right time to have a conversation about guns in America? Apparently not now. I mean, you'd think that Bob Costas had gone on the air and advocated infanticide. Let's just burn babies in big piles. I mean, people are just hysterical. And, basically what he said, I'll quote him. He was quoting, by the way, Jason Whitlock, a writer, a Kansas City-based writer who is very often on Fox Sports, who said, quote, "Our current gun culture ensures that more and more domestic disputes will end in the ultimate tragedy and that more convenience store confrontations over loud music coming from a car will leave more teenage boys bloodied and dead. Handguns do not enhance our safety. They exacerbate our flaws, leading us to escalate arguments and bait us into embracing confrontation rather than avoid it." And then he went on to say, in the coming days, Jovan Belcher's actions and its possible connection to football will be analyzed, but who knows? But here is what I believe. If Jovan Belcher didn't possess a gun, he and Cassandra Perkins would both be alive today. Well, with us on the line, Alan Korwin, the author and publisher, Second Amendment supporter, his website, gunlaws.com. And Alan, welcome to the program.
Nice to be back with you, Tom.
Glad to have you back with us. And by the way, I'm sorry, it says author. I don't have the title of your most recent book.
My last book is After You Shoot. Your gun's hot, the perp's not. Now what?
Okay. That's a great title, actually.
Well, look, if Cassandra had a gun and shot this guy twice in the chest, would Costas have gone on the TV and said, "Thank God she's alive and she stopped this murderous thug"?
Well, apparently she did have a gun, or she certainly had access to it. She and Jovan used to go shooting together. So having a gun and having a gun in your hand at the moment you need it, as you well know, Alan, are two very different things.
I know. Well, under Bill Clinton, the Justice Department found that 3.4 million crimes and lives are saved every year by firearms. So do we stop those people
in the hands of police?
Lives?
Is that
the solution?
No, wait a minute. You're saying 3.5 million crimes are stopped and lives are saved. This is a statistic I have never in my life heard, and I have been doing this program for 9 years, and I've had all kinds of gun advocates on. John Fund or John.
What?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We have more gun murders in this country. We have more kids who are killed, accidentally by guns than are killed intentionally by guns in all of Canada. I mean, it's obviously we have more population, but it's on a per capita basis we have more.
Well,
we have a gun problem in this country, Alan. Why can't we talk about it in public? Why does Bob Costas get shot down like this? No pun intended.
We should, Tom, but the numerical arguments are tricky. Under Clinton, the Justice Department found 3.4 million defensive gun uses, DGUs. We sell a book that has 13 scholarly studies that find between 2.5 million and 700,000 defensive gun uses every year, depending on study size and time frame. So 2.5 million to 700,000 defensive gun uses. Should we look at this statistically, or should we look at it philosophically?
I think we should look at it intelligently and in terms of public policy. Why should? Well, let me just ask this question, Alan. And this is a genuine. I'm not trying to play gotcha or anything here, or trying to filibuster you. I'm sorry if it sounds like I am. I'll let you talk, certainly. But why should we say? You have a right to public roads. It's in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, Congress can raise taxes to build public roads. You have a right to be on a public road. Why should we say that you have to prove proficiency in order to move 6,000 pounds of steel down the road at 70 miles an hour, because it might kill somebody, but you don't have to prove proficiency to fire 45 grains of lead out of the barrel of a pistol at 747 miles an hour?
Well, let's take your first question. When is the right time to discuss guns? Halftime on football is probably not the right time to discuss abortion, jihad, saving your life.
Well, it might be the right time to discuss abortion if a football player had just, obviously it wouldn't be the case because they're men, but if they had just had a very high-profile abortion.
Well, how about jihad or any other subject? He'd take a lot of flack for that. So I would say halftime in a football game is the wrong time.
But one of the
to
most
discuss
famous football players in the country just committed a murder-suicide using a gun. I think it is entirely appropriate.
Halftime in football is not the right time to discuss complex social issues like abortion or jihad or the fiscal cliff or murder-suicide. He'd have taken a lot of guff.
Well, why is it that guns never even got raised in the presidential debates?
Well, they did in the end, and I don't think they were done well. Let's you and I spend an hour intelligently discussing this instead of 9 minutes.
Well, we don't have an hour. Unfortunately, we only have 2 minutes left.
Let's take the question you just asked. If you have a misnomer here, a twist of logic. If it makes sense to register cars and teach people how to drive, then we should register airplanes and teach people how to fly. And
we do. I'm a licensed pilot. I can tell you all about it.
If it makes sense to register guns and teach people about guns and gun ownership, then we should register writers and teach people how to write and license writers.
I've never killed anybody with a typewriter.
Let me finish. First Amendment right to speak and write. Second Amendment right to own guns and protect your life.
No, the Second Amendment it doesn't say to protect your life. It says to have a well-organized militia.
Well, it says to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Read what are the first words of the Second Amendment?
I'll recite the 27 words if you want. But
try just the first 5.
We can parse this out.
In order to maintain a well-regulated militia.
The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Right.
Your right to own a firearm and your right to speak freely are fundamental rights. Should the government license your right to speak on the radio for you to talk publicly?
They absolutely do. I'm subject to all kinds of rules and regulations. There are words I could say that would cause me never again to be on radio by law.
And you think that's okay?
I think that's entirely appropriate. Yes.
Would you be in prison for that?
I doubt I'd go to prison. I'd lose my radio show. But I think that you're drawing a false comparison. That's a straw man argument.
I defend my life, and I didn't take the class. I should go to jail? If Cassandra defends her life against this murderous thug, but she didn't take the class or have the paperwork, she's guilty of a crime? Can you support that?
No, he should have taken the class and done the paperwork.
And that would have saved him?
Well, it's not going to save everybody, but it's a step forward, and it's going to save a lot of children in this country who get killed accidentally by guns.
A video called No Guns for Negroes put out by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Would you support that?
Oh, jeez. Alan Korwin.